What is up, dudes? Lady dudes, welcome back for another deck profile here on JustNutz, guys. Today I have a really definitely more fun deck profile. This is not a super competitive deck, but it is a very cool rogue, very cool, I don't know, casual deck. And it actually does some pretty cool things, and it has some power cards. I made a video talking about how if this deck got the right kind of support, this deck could actually be legitimately threatening. But it would definitely need a huge consistency boost. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about that because I already made a video about it. So check that out if you want. But let's get into the list I've been playing. So I've been gearing this deck to play first. I know this deck can definitely be geared to play second. It does have a couple of really powerful going second cards, but I made this build to go first. And doing testing, it's been really, really good. So let's start off with the monsters here. We've got 3 UA midfielder. This is the heart and soul of the deck. This is the only one that's normal summonable. That is why he is the heart and soul of the deck, because he is the initial one you get on board almost every time before like swapping them out of hand. So all the UAs have the same first effect that just says you can special summon them from hand by returning one that you already have on the field to your hand. So they just swap, right? And that's a hard once return. Special summon effect, and then they all usually have a secondary effect. And midfielders is that during either player's turn, you can target a different UA monster you control and swap it for one in your hand. So as a quick effect, you can just like drop different ones on your opponent's turn. That doesn't come up too often, honestly, in testing with this. It definitely can come up, but it doesn't come up that often because you're usually trying to just return him to your hand. You're not worried about returning the other ones. You're just trying to return him to your hand so that you can so that you have them as a follow-up next turn, because if you don't have something you can normal summon next turn, you might not have a follow-up play if your opponent is able to remove the UAs you had on field originally. So 3 midfielder to start it off. Then I played 2 UA Perfect Ace. This is probably the best one, at least the best defensive one by far. So this one has that same special summon effect that I said before, and then its secondary effect says if your opponent activates a card or effect, you can discard a card, any card from your hand to negate and destroy, which is pretty good. It's a soft once per turn as well, so if you put both on board, you can do that twice. The discard isn't that great. You don't really have any really amazing discard cards, but you have a lot of like 3-ofs in the deck of hard once per turn cards, so like you can just discard like doubles and stuff like that, or whatever, just the least useful card you at the moment, because negate and destroy any card effect is pretty damn good. Then I play 2 UA Dreadnought Dunker. He's the best offensive one. Same special summon effect, but his second effect is super offensive. It says, first things first, he deals piercing. So if he ever attacks a defense monster, your opponent will take the difference. And then his second effect says if he ever deals battle damage to your opponent, then he can target and pop 1 card on the field, which is actually pretty nice because every time you go into the battle phase with him, you're usually removing at least 2 cards. 1 monster he's killing, and then 1 other card that he's popping with his effect, which is really, really cool. Then we have 1 blockbacker and 1, what was his name? What is your name? Mighty Slugger, that's right. These are kind of niche cards. These are kind of extra cards. The other ones aren't really that worth. I was looking at Rival Rebounder, but he wasn't really worth it. So for the one I decided to play these 2. Mighty Slugger just says if he attacks, your opponent cannot activate anything until the end of the damage step, which is really actually nice in our game right now. So like your opponent cannot bring Ray back if you use him to attack over a Sky Striker monster. And then Thunder Dragons cannot protect themselves with their protection effects, as well as Balinks cannot be used in graveyard to protect Salamangreat monsters. So literally against all 3 of the best decks, like they literally have something that happens in the battle phase, and this just erases that. So he's actually a niche card. Specific to this meta, I could definitely see him not being playable at some point, and maybe you just play like a 3rd Dunker. Just go all in on your offensive ones and maybe like 3 Perfect Ace if like blockbacker isn't useful, but these are the additional offensive and defensive ones just because they're once per turn. So sometimes if you can put 2 UAs on field to be defensive, you want 1 ace and 1 blockbacker. And if you're being offensive, you want 1 dunker, 1 slugger usually. So blockbacker though, he says 1, he's huge defense, so 27 defense is huge, and he says once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster, or when your opponent special summons a monster, you can change that monster to defense position, or I'm sorry, change the battle position, period. It doesn't have to be a defense position. And if you do, negate its effects permanently. So the one thing about this is that, like, a lot of people will special summon into their extra deck and will into link monsters specifically, and at that point you can't do anything about that. But there definitely are plays for this, like if your opponent summons Mirage Stalio against Salamangreats, you just swap them to defense mode, nothing. If your opponent's like Thunder Dragon board is like summon one Colossus with like Hot Red Dragon, Archfiend Abyss, and like something else, you can like use him to swap the Colossus to defense mode, or to negate its effects, or attack mode and negate its like it ruining you from searching. It uses something against everything. It's terrible against Striker. There's like an easy side out against Striker, but against most decks, especially rogue decks, this card's going to be pretty good against. Yeah, so these are the additional one-ofs you play. Only 6 big boys because you're not trying to play too many of the big ones because they brick. Just like Blue Eyes has for this whole time and still does even to this day, and just like Dark Magician, monsters that are decks that play multiple big monsters that don't get themselves on field by themselves, you will brick at some point. So then for the hand traps, I don't play a ton because this isn't going first build, but I did want something in case you do lose the die roll. I mean, almost every deck wants to go first nowadays, so you still have a 50-50 chance of losing. So game 1, I do want something that a couple cards to give me some kind of disruption going second, and that's why I play 2 Ogre, 2 Ash. Nothing crazy. I would definitely consider playing Impermanence if I had them, but Veiler as well. I mean, it's up to player preference. I just really like Ogre in general, and right now I really like Ogre, so feel free to put in whatever hand traps you specifically want. Now we move on to the spell cards. You play a ton of spell cards. So the first one is UA Stadium. This is the field spell. No terraformings to go with this. Just for the sole fact that like it's like part of like 1, 2, and 3 card combos. So like I'm really not trying to see like multiple of this card because it's never good to see multiple of this card. If you don't see it with midfielder, like that's the problem, is this card doesn't really do anything unless you see it with midfielder. Because what this card says is if you normal summon a UA monster, period, so I guess you could tribute summon one of your midfielders, this card lets you add any UA monster from deck to hand. So this with midfielder is pretty good because you just activate this, normal midfielder, and then search whichever one you want to swap for midfielder. So it's just a quick little +1. And then it says, once per turn, when a... let's see. Once per turn, if a UA monster is special summoned to your side of the field, all monsters you control gain 500 attacks. So that is a mandatory effect. So the first time you special summon, they will gain 500, and you cannot use that again that turn, which kind of stinks because a lot of times you special summon and then you end up swapping again. So like the ones you end on are actually being able to, like, wishing you had the 500 boost on, were already swapped off the field. So that's a bummer, but still, like, it does come up, like, especially in longer games. Like, if you kept the same one on the field for a couple turns, they can get up to, like, over 4,000 if it's a grindier game, which is pretty nuts. So UA Stadium, really good. I just didn't want to play too many copies. Kind of like Lair of Darkness. Like, it's good to have, but you don't want too many of it. Then for, like, literally the best card in the deck is UA Signing Deal. This spell card literally just says special summon any UA straight from deck. You take damage equal to the level of the monster times 300, so you're usually taking 12 from summoning a midfielder, unless you already have midfielder in hand, in which case you're summoning 5, 6, or 7, so you're taking either 15, 18, or 2100 damage, but, like, I'll take 2k to get a free, like, a monster straight from the deck, because otherwise you just don't even play. This card's nuts. It negates the monster's effects, so that's not usually a big deal, because if you open this with any UA monster, you're going to swap them. And then you're going to summon them back, and they will have their effects at that point, because they left the field and came back, so that doesn't really matter. But hard once to turn, obviously, but this is like the shining card in the deck that makes the deck even a little bit playable. There, I play one UA powered jersey because if I do go second, I would love to see this with any UA, with the ability to get any UA monster on the field, specifically Dreadnought Dunker. This card has an amazing combo with Dreadnought Dunker, and a pretty good combo with Mighty Slugger, because this card just lets Dunker attack twice. It gives it whatever UA it's equipped to 1,000 boost. If it destroys a monster after the first battle, it can attack again, and all damage it deals is doubled. So like with Dunker, you could literally attack, deal double damage, pop a card, get to attack again, deal double damage again, and pop another card. So you could literally remove 4 cards in the same battle phase with those two. And then this card says if this card goes to the graveyard because the monster it was equipped to returns to the hand, like by doing the thing they do every turn, swap, it comes back to your hand. So you literally just load this back into your hand and do the same thing again next turn. So if you have this card and this card is like usable at the time, it's like you like win the duel. But I play this card because it's like pretty searchable as well. So UA powered jersey. I play 3 Pot of Extravagance because you really don't care about the extra deck much, except for like 1 card in your main deck that really makes you care. Well, I guess 3. We'll say 3. But Extravagance just too good. I mean, like, consistency is the biggest problem of this deck, so I would never even try to play this deck in a semi-competitive way without playing Extravagance. At least right now, because you don't have like Link monsters or anything for the deck. There, then for another like kind of turbo, like really good starter card, Foolish Burial of Goods. This card sends your UA trap card, which we'll get to in a little bit, but yeah, it's just essentially one of the, I believe, 10 cards in the deck that gets us to midfielder turn 1, and we need to see midfielder turn 1, or we really don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Much. I played 3 Call by the Grave just because all of the 10 ways to get to midfielder, if you're not hard opening midfielder, all 7 ways to get to him are ashable. If you get ashed on the signing deal and you don't have like a really strong hand to follow up, you probably lose. So 3 Call by the Grave. Plus, it's just so good right now. Like really good as a disruption going first against Salamangrates. Decent Banishing Ray, so your opponent can't bring it back. If you remove a Link monster, and if everybody knows if you can keep strikers out of their extra deck, then they don't play much. And against Thunder Dragons, it negates after it vanishes, so they just lose a bunch of advantage there. Then 2 Instant Fusions. This is sort of like 2 more Called by the Graves, but also going second. It's pretty good. And I think this just has so many different ways. So like going first, you make Millennium Eyes to essentially be a walking Called by the Grave so that you can't get ashed or other hand traps, but ash is really the main one that matters. And then it's the second thing is that like you can also make it 1,000 Hours going second to steal something. And then the third thing is sometimes you literally just need to summon something so that you can tribute it all to tribute summon. Because if you don't have a card to get you to midfielder, or maybe you got ashed on the midfielder, not that like that would happen because you go to the Millenniums first, but let's just say you don't open a midfielder. You could open Perfect Ace, which is a 1 tribute, or Slugger, which is a 1 tribute. You only have 3, but like that did come up today when I was testing a little bit, doing like a bunch of test hands and stuff, where I had a hand that it was only playable because I opened Instant Fusion with Perfect Ace. So I literally just Instant Fusion Millennium Eyes, and then just tributed it for Perfect Ace. I got a UA on field because I had 2 other UAs in hand, and then I was able to swap and get things going that way, which is pretty good. So Instant Fusion has a good, it's just so versatile. Like it does so many different things and has a specific use in this deck like that. 1 Reinforcement of the Army, just 4th midfielder. 1 Reasoning. This is actually a really spicy card I decided to play in the deck just because, especially because nobody knows what UAs do or what they play. You have 3 level 4s. Let's see, what is that? 3 level 5s, 3 level 7s, and 4 level 3s. So good luck. They're probably going to call level 4 because they're just trying to keep you from midfielder at all costs. If they're smart, they call level 4 because you can get a big boy, but if you can out the big boy and they still don't have access to midfielder, you win the duel. So you probably should call level 3, but you have a better chance of hitting, or level 4, you have a better chance of hitting your hand traps at level 3, and you have 3 7s and 3 5s, so like the same amount as hitting midfielder. So, and you do have 1 card that you really want to mill as well. It's just like if you don't see a midfielder, it is an extra way to just get a UA on board quick and easy. So I figure why not? There are not that many decks that really make good use of reasoning, and I think this deck is a decent deck to do so. 1 Scapegoat. This is the 1 card that really makes the extra deck any kind of usable at all, any kind of useful, whatever. And yeah, it's really good as a follow-up play because sometimes you don't make the most insane boards, but literally just knowing that set, your opponent could rip you down and summon a pretty big board, but Scapegoat can like just pound them back as soon as they end their turn. You flip this, they're gonna be like, oh god. So Scapegoat pretty good. And for the 1 card you always want to send off of Foolish Burial Goods is UA Penalty Box. This card has 2 different effects. The first effect says it's a continuous, so while it's face up on the field, at the start of the damage step, if a UA monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that monster until the end of their 2nd turn. which is actually pretty nice because it just slows down so much of what they want to do, like every turn. Like, especially the first time you use this is probably going to be when they attack you. They might attack you, and then you flip this, and they lose something. It's only once per turn, so you can't just do that over and over again, but still, sometimes just once per turn is enough. And then even if they try to out this because it's a problem, this card banishes itself from grave to add any UA spell card from deck to hand. So you almost always add your signing deal, so that literally next turn you have a surefire follow-up plan of just special summoning one straight from deck. So really, really nice card. I really like that card a lot. And then I just played 3 Solemn. So 1 Strike, 1 Warning, 1 Judgment. They're all really good. There's a going first variant. So if this was a going second variant, obviously these would be very, very different. I would consider like Mind Control to just steal something and tribute it off, because that definitely has a decent amount of value in this deck, in those weird brick hands that you end up having. Other than that, though, just cards that, like, if you go first, it's just an extra disruption, and Solemns are so powerful going first. So obviously easy side outs going second, but at least going first they're really good. So that's the main deck. Pretty cool. And then let's move into this extra deck. There's not a ton of craziness going on here. It's like literally like a ton of like scapegoat stuff, like 1 Link Spider, 1 Link Karibo, Unicorn, Security Dragon, not Cerberus, because like, why? Like, it's just better. The only time you're ever going into this is like under the scapegoat, under like a scapegoat situation in which it will be co-linked, so you will get the bounce. There are 2 Mrs. Radiant just in case, like, because like sometimes you're just playing beatdown, so sometimes all you have to do is like go into 2 Mrs. Radiants, then your whole UA lineup is all Earths, so they'll all be buffed 1,000 and they'll be 2,400, and you can put a ton of damage with just them and like 1 UA monster. 1 Double Bite Dragon, because I have like a weird affinity towards this card. I think it's pretty cool, especially in Scapegoat, because sometimes you can literally just end like this with like Unicorn, or this with like Phoenix, I mean, and like this card could be like 2,100. It can only be destroyed by battle by a Link monster, and it can only be, what, like targeted by a Link monster? Unaffected by monster effects except for Link monster effects. So if your opponent doesn't have like a Link monster way to out this, then like literally they just lose. They'll lose to beatdown with this, and it's and with Nightmare Phoenix too. Like you just have weird plays like that. Nothing. I mean, it's not crazy, but I just like the card. I think it's really cool. Nightmare Trisbania for if you're playing a weird back row deck and you can just scapegoat into it and just win. Nightmare Unicorn, easy. Borreload, Griffin, these are the 2 main cards you make off of Scapegoat. If Borreload isn't super worth, your opponent doesn't really have any monsters that you really need to like steal, or no monsters at all, sometimes you just go into Griffin, like discard a card and like get back one of the cards in your graveyard. Sometimes you get another Scapegoat back, sometimes you just get like a I don't know, some kind of power card. Like you get Extravagance to draw 2 next turn. You get a Signing Deal to extend a little further. Whatever you want. There. And then the last 3 cards. Oh, I'm sorry. Last link is Isol. This is the only card that's really relevant for the UAs. The problem is, like, you don't summon UAs very fast. So, like, putting 2 on the board just to make this, to get the search, is, like, not really going to happen that often. But I guess in a weird situation, it could come up. I don't know. It's just here just because you're playing a warrior deck. You might as well have it there in case it ever does come up. There. And then the last cards are the instant fusion targets. And I would just recommend playing Super Poly. That's the only reason this is here. Super Poly is just so good against literally, like, in the matchups. Like, because Salamangreat is in the meta, like, you might as well just side Super Poly. Like, you're probably going to see it multiple times during a tournament. It's just a one-of that probably wins you the duel. Like, no matter what your hand was, no matter what their hand was, it probably just wins you the duel. And then obviously Millennium Eyes and Thousand Eyes restrict for going first and going second respectively with instant fusion. So that's pretty much it for the whole deck, guys. It's really fun. Like, honestly, like I said in the discussion video talking about like what the deck can do now and stuff. And literally, like, I just think it's such a cool dynamic of just having offensive and defensive players, and literally you just like swap them based on whether you're on offense or whether you're on defense. It's literally just like a sport. It's literally just like in sports. Like your offensive players play for you when you're on offense, and then you swap to the defensive players and they do their thing when you're on defense. So it's really cool. I love the deck. I would love to see more support come out in the future. If it does, I'll be super hyped, and I'll be making videos on those. But yeah, that's pretty much where we're sitting right now. So let me know what you think about the deck profile. Let me know if you think I should change it up. Obviously, I could be playing a going second build, but I decided to play a going first build this time, just because there's so many decks right now that literally just like go first and do so many unfair things unless you have like multiple hand traps for them. So going second is just like really brutal if you're not Thunder Dragons and just like break boards like it's nobody's business. So I decided not to do that. But guys, let me know what you think about the deck profile. Like the video if you like the deck profile, and sub to the channel if you want to see more from me in the future. Because I'm definitely down to like try and evolve this deck as we go, especially if any new support ever comes out. But thank you so much for watching this video. I love you guys. Seriously, I love this channel. We're still going to keep growing, slow and steady, and we'll get there. We'll get wherever we're going eventually. So thanks again. I'll see you next time. Peace.